recording there, and we are recording on Zoom. Awesome. All right, Katherine, so glad to have you with me today for a little chat. I want to first start out by just kind of introducing you, and so our listeners can know that you were a student of mine in Spanish 103, I believe, right?
Was it
your sophomore year?
It was my sophomore year, yes.
Yeah. So that's how our friendship started. And then you came on the Granada program with me. So you brought—
Which was amazing.
It seems like a lifetime ago, right?
I know, it was 4 years ago already.
That's crazy. So why don't you tell us kind of where you are in your life stage now, 4 years later?
So currently, after Granada, I was fortunate enough to be able to study abroad again. So I took a lot of those experiences I learned from my month there and studied abroad in Copenhagen, Denmark during my junior year. Then senior year, finished out my psychology degree at Loyola. And then I'm from Maryland, so I stayed in the Baltimore area and went to the UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, for my master's in public policy with a concentration in healthcare. And during my master's degree, I was also fortunate to have the opportunity to complete an internship in New York City for a nonprofit health insurance company, which led me back to returning to New York City, although a bit virtually now, to work as a healthcare consultant.
That's awesome.
That is where I'm at now.
You've got that all lined up and you're waiting to start very soon, right?
Yes, I'll be starting in a little bit less than a month.
So exciting. So you're going to share with us some wisdom today and some insight from
I hope wisdom.
College. You have wisdom. Maybe you don't realize it, but you do. And we're going to talk about what you wish you knew when you were in college, and especially freshman year and transitioning into that. And then we're going to talk about what you wish your professors, or just professors in general, knew or better understood about their students. So we'll start off with the first one. So what would you go back and tell yourself at the start of freshman year?
So I guess to give a little bit of background context to my freshman year was that it was extremely challenging for me. I went to school about 45 minutes from home, but I really tried to immerse myself in the on-campus experience. And it honestly was a big adjustment because of the school where I went to was very, I wouldn't say cliquey a little bit, but just big on, doing things that I wasn't fully comfortable with in terms of drinking, like underage. And so because of that, it was a little bit harder to find my friends because they weren't, the people like me weren't all congregated together. So it just took time to kind of really force myself to make friends in my classes, force myself to make friends at the gym, even like anywhere that I could, because I wasn't as inclined to meeting friends at parties. And so I loved the academic side of my college experience all the way through. So I think that was the point the part that kept me at Loyola was that I was so excited to be there to learn, and I loved my professors. As a psychology major, I had pretty much great experiences across the board with psych professors, and I knew I was comfortable there academically. Socially, it was a little bit more of a challenge. But the one thing I knew as well, though, was that I never wanted to transfer, which I think is interesting because I feel like a lot of people go into freshman year, they don't like it, they can't make friends, and then they transfer. But that's not going to always fix the problem, because then you're starting over when you're going to a new school. So then you're a freshman all over again. So I knew in the back of my head that if I just stuck it out, it was going to work out. I just needed to keep on going, keep on saying yes to, if someone asked to get lunch, or just inviting people to get lunch. And I did that. I made it a habit to continue to invite people to dinner or to lunch. And so I tried to push myself to do things like that. But I wish that I told myself back then, to have grace and to have compassion for myself, because I put a lot of pressure on myself because of all these challenges. And I put pressure on myself to make more friends and be this person and keep on going out there. But it's also okay to sometimes just sit and be with yourself for dinner sometimes. So I think that was a double-edged sword. So I was pushing myself out there, but then it got to be too much at times too. So I think I should have let some things happen more organically than they did and not force the issue. Because I think that in hindsight, that kind of made some of my adjustment challenges a little bit worse at times.
Yeah, when you push your own limits and then you suffer as a result.
It's like a workout, you push yourself in a run or a race, and maybe you shouldn't go that hard that day, but you can do it, you can push yourself, but is it always in your best interest to do so?
Exactly. Because there are going to be consequences when you overdo it. That's a really great analogy. I love like the running analogies and the workout analogies. I put things in terms of that a lot. So I think that it seems like there's this big fallacy out there that like freshman year is like the best time ever and you meet friends right away. And if that's not happening, like it means that something has gone terribly wrong.
Oh, it is.
What do you think about that?
Oh my gosh, that was the other thing too. I had such high expectations going into freshman year. I was done with high school. I was excited to go meet friends. I was excited to meet people that were like me. And I set the bar so high for what college was going to look like. And my mom still keeps in touch with her college friends. Plot twist, I guess, spoiler of the story is that right now I'm living with one of my closest friends from college. So it works out in the end. But yeah, I had such a high expectation of meeting my friends for life freshman year. And I do have one friend from my Messina. Loyola has a freshman seminar, I think still. And I still connect with her and talk to her. I'm texting her this morning. So I met one really close friend, but as a whole, it was still such a struggle. And living up to that high expectation that I had envisioned and that I had set for myself was very challenging. And so
it puts so much pressure on the situation.
Yeah. And so even now, like, 6 years later, I guess, on from freshman year, I've still had to try and be like, okay, let's have reasonable, manageable expectations, because then you just set yourself up for disappointment. And so not saying, no, don't have hope, don't be excited, don't be this, don't be that. You can still be excited and have expectations, but manage them and be like, okay, if this goes a little bit of a different direction, it's still okay. And it can still be great. It just might need to take a little bit more time to be great.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's key. I mean, developing relationships, developing friendships, it just takes time.
It does.
It works best, I think, when it happens naturally. And that's not to say that you don't put in the effort and, ask someone to lunch or accept an invitation. Of course, that's part of it, but pushing it and like pressuring yourself to like have your group of friends figured out within the first, month of school, it's just unrealistic. And it may not happen even in the first year or 2 years.
No. And for me, it really didn't. I mean, I knew my closest friends currently from college. I knew them from freshman year, but I wasn't as close with them until the end. And I feel like during that first year, especially, you have like those safety net friends. So what I call with those friends, like the friends that you do get for dinner, but you don't really develop a deeper relationship. They're just kind of like people to get dinner with, which is great, but it doesn't really go to a more meaningful level in terms of friendship, because that comes a lot later when you go through more experiences together, you go through roommate issues, you have, other challenges with the classes and friends and boyfriends and things like that. So it just takes time to go through those experiences together, which then in the end makes a friendship and relationship stronger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what is required to form those deeper bonds, a shared experience, and it doesn't happen instantaneously.
No.
Yeah, awesome. How about anything else that comes to mind regarding your freshman year that you wish you had known, or that you would go back and tell your poor lost freshman self?
I think this is probably mainly subject to me, but I was very like regimented in my, what I was going to do and what I wasn't going to do. I wasn't very flexible. And I think it's important, especially during that freshman year, and I could just be generalizing, but I feel like most people are pretty flexible their freshman year, but I was not. And so for those out there that are not flexible, it's really important to be flexible and be more open. So that's what
Can you give an example of that in concrete terms?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even as simple as, going to the gym at a later time, or trying out a new food place that maybe you don't like it, but the fact that you're out there pushing yourself to go is a step in the right direction. So being flexible and talking to different crowds, and maybe being invited somewhere that you hadn't envisioned yourself there. I guess I can give one example too. I had a very big challenge with this, but I ended up doing it. One of the, counselors had suggested that I go to another Messina activity. So in Messina, we had group activities. And so this group was not mine that I was assigned to, but I was invited to go to a different group. And I didn't make any lasting friendships from going to that one outing, but I still went. And so I think it's just it's important to be flexible and open and going to try those new experiences that aren't parties. They're not that was just like, we went out to dinner together. It's doing those different experiences is what I mean by flexible, not the typical college.
Right. That's a fair disclaimer, because that idea can be taken and
no experimentation. Not experimentation in the raw, in like the illegal way.
Yeah. Or a way that's going to, hurt you physically or mentally. But within the realm of what is safe and legal, I think it's a very good piece of advice to suggest that, stepping outside of your comfort zone or what you typically do or believe yourself to be interested in, that's a way of just exposing yourself to new people and new experiences that will grow you, and maybe it will, promote some friendship that you wouldn't have otherwise developed. Or maybe it won't, but that's okay too. It
is. Yep. You have to, go through, it's like, what's the phrase, the cliche, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Like, if you don't take them, there's going to be no goal. There's going to be no shot. So you just have to keep going.
Yeah. Stepping out of your shell. It can be hard, especially for introverts or just people who came from small towns or small high schools. And if they find themselves in a big university, or any university for that matter, it can be overwhelming. But that's where we need to, be aware and conscious and think like, okay, what would be best for me? And maybe this is something that I do want to experience. So good advice. Awesome. Okay, let's move into the realm of professors. I know you said you had a great experience with all your professors, but I think there's still opportunity to open lines of communication even further between professors and students. So what would you tell your professors, or what do you just wish professors knew in general, maybe that they could better understand about students?
So I feel like I've been extremely fortunate to have good mentorship relationships with my professors. Although I will say that, it's a two-way street at first. Like, the professor is not going to seek you out and seek that mentee opportunity. You're the one that first has to go to the office hours and, start talking about school problems, and maybe even just to chat, to show your face to a certain professor, because like friends, you're not going to mesh well with all your professors and want a mentor relationship with each and every one of them. So as advice on the student perspective, I think just not even going to office hours, but just setting up a separate appointment, I think is important too. So it's like a conscious effort that you're going to start to build this relationship with the professor, because you also never know what their background is and what advice they might have. And then as you get to know them further, you might share a little bit about yourself, and they hear, I think what students sometimes forget is that professors hear it all. They hear all the, gossip and the stories of college. And so I think they're more in tuned than students think that they are in what's going on campus. And so I think it's important for students to realize that, and then know that they can share things about themselves or about what's going on to their professors. And then from the professor side, I think it's also important to take some of those meetings outside of their office and bring them to Starbucks or bring them on a walk, which you and I used to do, both walking in Starbucks. And I think it's
Friday coffee chats. For anyone who doesn't know, who's listening, that's how this whole thing started. This podcast has been born of my Friday coffee chats with Katherine in a large part.
They were such a great, afternoon, starting point for the weekend. And, Holly and I connected on a deeper level during those chats. And it was important to get out of the classroom school setting, out of the office. And, it gave us an opportunity to talk about the week. And, I asked her for advice on what was going on in my life. And it was exciting hearing about other student successes and everything of that sort. And so I think it's important. Context is important in environment. Because if you're, it's like when they say, you switch a classroom to take a test. If it's not your same classroom you've been having the class in, it's going to feel different. So it's the same environment for a professor. If you're always going to a meeting in their office, it might feel different. You might feel differently towards them because you're in that same environment. So just perspective. It's all about perspective and recognizing that like their professors are people too, and they want to help. And so I think that's important as well, to maybe have the professor suggest like a coffee chat, to have, you know, just a different laid back environment than just in their office.
Right. Because I think, that it just allows us to see each other as humans, people to people, rather than our roles alone, professor and student.
Right.
So,
and I think, you know, another thing that professors, if they might already realize this, is that they do really make a difference in a lot of students' lives, and they're extremely memorable. And I've got a few that I can think of, including yourself, that I'll probably never forget, because they just made such an impact, and they helped me through, you know, such tough like decisions, like with grad school and different challenges that I had. And so I think that they really should not forget how valuable they are to students, especially, of course, this depends on what type of university you go to. If it's a smaller school, you might have easier access to your professors, and they might be more accessible to you because they have a lower amount of students. But I think overall it's important just to remember that they're like another person who they see all the time, a student sees all the time, and they want, you know, advice from, because they've been there and they've seen things and all of that. So I think it's always important to remember that too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you for that, because sometimes we forget like the potential we have to make an impact on students, and we kind of get caught up in what we can offer through delivering like the course content, but it's so much more than that. We can go beyond that. So that's really special. Wonderful. Well, those were my questions. Do you have anything else to add for our listeners? Or actually, how about this, just real quick, what other topics would you like to hear on this podcast, or would you think would be beneficial for college students, or especially like incoming freshmen, to hear and talk about?
I think confidence is big. I definitely feel so much more, which I know comes with age, of course, as well, but so much more confident in my capabilities, in my personality, in my, you know, just what I have to offer to the world, so to speak. And I think that does come with time, but it also comes with positive like self-talk and reinforcement and pushing yourself to do hard things. As cliche as that sounds, a lot of people don't push themselves, and you're not going to grow, again, another cliche, but they're true for a reason. You're not going to grow by being in your comfort zone. You have to just do that little thing, like raise your hand, you know, that one time per class period, even if you already know the answer to the question you're going to ask. But the more you do it, the easier it gets, and then the easier it is that it just comes naturally. Like now I would say I'm an extreme extrovert, but that I would not say the same about me as a freshman, because it came because I tried to work on it. And so I think building that confidence and trying to do activities, you know, exercises that helps to build that confidence is really important.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's almost like a skill that we can learn.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
I feel like this is a trend. I'm always talking about this, but you know, just like courage, confidence is something that can be built through practice, and you learn by doing hard things, that then you can trust yourself and you gain confidence through that. But even before you do that thing that you perceive as really hard, like you can choose to believe in yourself and in your ability to figure it out. Not in your ability to just know how to do it magically, automatically, but like we all have the option of choosing to trust ourselves to figure something out.
We do. And in psychology, we call that self-efficacy. It's like your belief that you can do anything, but it's your belief. It's not anyone else's. It's your inner belief.
Right. And that can be reinforced through self-talk, positive self-talk. Right. Ooh, I feel like this could open up a new episode. So let's keep this one like, let's do like a mental. Yeah. No, I mean, we could totally talk about this for like a lot longer. So that's just planting a seed, confidence, and anything else, any other topics that you think would be really relevant here? It's a good one.
Yeah. None that comes to mind, because I feel like confidence kind of it's like an overarching one for me personally. But so none that I can think of at the moment.
Okay. Well, we will keep that one in the back of our minds and continue to think about that. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insight. And I'm sure all of our listeners have enjoyed silently participating in this conversation. All right. We look forward to you coming back again.